salvation of mankind ends now.
So this is why the Heavenly Principles have been doing what they're doing. And not only have the two most important and missing elements always been in Teyvat, but they actually hide its fate. And although Teyvat and Genshin might be very different than the other main titles of the HoYoverse, there's been more than enough anomalies to know we are in some deep Celestia, trying to defy the rules that make up the known universe. That is a very ambitious task. Why is Teyvat so special among all the million vast majority of worlds out there within the Honkai and total HoYoverse? What's so special about this little medieval planet that is pretty primitive in comparison to the rest of the universe that's very technologically advanced? You have literal beings known as Herrscher, which is a German word for omnipotent, ruler, or powerful individual. These people can control the Honkai. We'll get into that in a second. And then we have people like Akron, who's an emanator of nihility, a literal eon that is a black hole within the galaxy. A being like this could level Teyvat within one swipe of her sword, and everyone within it. But yet, as insignificant as it might seem in the grand picture of the universes, why is it so goddamn important? That's always been the question. What makes this world so special? I think we can all agree out of all the main HoYoverse games, Genshin is the most unique and it's an anomaly. It's its own little isolated game with its own isolated story and world. It doesn't really overlap that much with the other ones. Whereas in Honkai Star Rail and Impact, you have characters that have literally jumped over from one world to the other. The Astral Express travels from world to world. Both games are very technologically advanced. Civilization is very advanced. They're in space. They're doing all of these crazy things. There's eons, God, the Honkai. They're constantly doing all of these things. But then Teyvat, we just have our much more medieval setting with our group of characters and the Heavenly Principles that have been monopolizing Teyvat for a long time. But they're all connected, confirmed by the developers, but also there have always been little subtle details that connect these games on a deeper level, and for the most part we just didn't see it. Of course we've had characters like Skirk that are not from Teyvat, the Narwhal, and the mysteries of Alice, and the other elements that actually paint this whole picture. We're going to be breaking all of that down in this video. I truly think I know why Teyvat exists in the first place, why the Primordial One came, why the Heavenly Principles do what they do, and why outside external forces like Descenders and the Abyss are a huge threat to everything. Think of Teyvat like a sealed, airtight container. It needs to be airtight for no contamination, but even the slightest cracks and leaks can be detrimental. Characters in Teyvat have somewhat figured out that they're living a false world. There have never been a sky. But are they dooming themselves? Are they literally inviting the Honkai in without even knowing it? Without even knowing all the other worlds out there and what they're actually trying to do? Are they dooming themselves? To understand Teyvat, let's break down the HoYoverse, how this whole grand world that pretty much every single universe and life form expands from. More or less the laws and roots of the universe. Like breaking it down to its most simplistic and basic starting point. It's really hard when you're talking about multiverse crazy like celestial type stuff, but I'm going to simplify this in a way that even people that don't play all the games will fully understand. And let's start with the Sea of Quanta. The Sea of Quanta in simplistic terms is a very important place within the HoYoverse, and this place is where bubble universes reside, a multiverse, and where several characters were actually sealed away. Obviously, there is a big possibility that Genshin and Teyvat is one of these bubble universes. There is a space between worlds, and that's where the Sea of Quanta actually is. That's probably what the false sky is, if you ask me. What they actually see as the sky is actually just the Sea of Quanta, where Genshin resides in one of many worlds within. Then we have the imaginary tree, and its branches make up different timelines, different worlds, different outcomes. It literally is the universe expanding and different things happening, new worlds being created and growing over millennia. Each branch represents a flip of the coin, if you will, different outcomes and different results branching in different new timelines. And at the end of each branch is a leaf, which represents our current state of each world or universe. In Honkai Star Rail, the Astral Express are able to travel between these different universes and worlds through the track laid by an eon, and they can literally jump around and help out wherever they need to. But remember, not all of them are connected. All exist at once and are not parallel universes to each other, but instead different versions of a timeline brought about by different choices made at a certain point in time. Welt, for example, comes from the world of Honkai Impact 3rd, but somehow found himself aboard the Astral Express. I won't go into detail. Meanwhile, Himiko, who actually already exists in the Honkai Impact world, where we already know we have export characters, different characters, but all the same, just different universe versions of themselves, like the Raiden Shogun, Acheron, and Raiden Mei. The Sea of Quanta being where these leaves actually fall when they fall off the branches of the tree, and the tree and the sea are always trying to consume each other. They're yin and yang, always trying to fight for total control, which will never happen because they're literally just represent balance. But then there's a third element called the Honkai. The Honkai is probably just the will of the tree. What it does is acts like a purging system for different worlds and universes on that tree. But the Honkai is just a title, it's a concept. You know, it comes in the form of disease, monsters, disasters, world-ending calamities that will just end civilization that's advanced too far. That's an important detail because look at Teyvat, not very advanced. You know, not that we want them to be. And if you try to get too advanced, well, it's a bit of a problem. But the Honkai, even though it's a concept, seems to have its own will, or godlike will in a sense. It's like a force of order and balance. And as for the tree, you know, it basically just connects all these worlds and timelines together. It could almost be, in a sense, a metaphor. For example, the branches are the timelines, the leaves are the worlds at the present moment, at the end of the timeline. The Astral Express, along with others, blessed with powers from the eons, can travel through imaginary space to visit other worlds or alternate realities. The Stellarons break these links between worlds and make travel between the worlds impossible or until we remove them, hence the Hawkeye Star Rail story. And now that brings us to the imaginary and quantum element. Notice how one looks like a black hole symbol and the other looks like a tree. These are the original two, I guess, energies of the universe. I don't even know if you'd call them elements. You know, they're more akin to creation and destruction, light and dark, than actual like elements with the rock, paper, scissors effect. The imaginary is a term derived from the imaginary tree, which is the birthplace of the multiverse. It's a higher dimensional construct that is responsible for the creation of most universes. And this is where this imaginary energy comes from. The quantum, on the other hand, originates from the Sea of Quanta, which is a vast, infinite space that exists outside the realm of the tree and is slowly decaying and destroying whatever finds its way into it. So in short terms, imaginary equals creation, life, quantum, black hole, destruction. And now that we've went over that, these two elements and the Honkai have been missing in Genshin and Teyvat. The name Honkai, Genshin Impact is the only main title game that doesn't have the word Honkai in it, and that's no accident. But has imaginary and quantum energy been used in Teyvat? Well, yeah, we've seen multiple cases of it. I mean, we saw Skirk chuck a freaking narwhal through a black hole. The narwhal should have never even been in Teyvat. Then we have Dainsleif. He's not using no pyro or cryo. He's using quantum energy. Celestial beings, the travelers. What's their deal with the imaginary energy? We know that Teyvat has somewhat recognized the light and dark realms. Teyvat in its history books seems to have started to slowly piece together what we already know in the greater scheme, that there's something going on, something very obscure about Teyvat and its laws, how it functions. Because Teyvat does function like the rest of the Honkai games. It follows the same principle laws that make up the known universe with these same energies and elements, but it's been trying to hide and mask that, which is why we don't actually have the proper names for certain things within Teyvat, because people that are living in Teyvat are so isolated they don't even know that these things exist. Even in Fontaine, because Fontaine is one of the more advanced civilizations in Teyvat, and we have a group of people and scientists known as the Nartutsenkroins who have actually experimented with quantum and imaginary energy already, but they just don't even know it, because they experimented with the Abyss after the Cataclysm, and that is where they came up with the Ocean and Numian energies. Why is Fontaine the only region that has this? Well, that's because this organization was heavily indulging with abyssal and different concepts and different types of engineering, scientific advancements, which is a big no-no in Teyvat. But these elements or energies, whatever you want to call them, existing in Teyvat confirms that Teyvat functions still under the same laws and principles, connecting them to the other games even further. Also, looking back at that scene with Skirk, it's clear that she is on a power level that exceeds even probably all of the Archons combined. She chucks a narwhal through a black hole. I think it's pretty obvious that she probably came from the Sea of Quanta and the multiverse in some way, but where did she come from, we don't know. But she clearly has quantum energy that she can manipulate and control. She has powers that people in Teyvat wouldn't even fathom. But what's so important about Teyvat? Why is it drawing the attention of all these people? Descenders, Conria. Well, in simple terms, I think whoever created Teyvat, the Heavenly Principles, whether they altered everyone's memories with Irminsul and put false memories in there, I think Teyvat exists to avoid the Honkai and try to escape, and is the first world within the Honkai-verse to successfully isolate itself. Not so successfully, I guess, but has avoided the Honkai, or at least we think it has. Trying to avoid the Honkai, work around it, is like trying to defy fate, the very laws that make up the known universe. That's a tall order, and I think the Primordial one almost successfully did it. I think they took a world that was inhabited by dragons, created humans, defeated the dragons, and established Teyvat. Teyvat has always functioned under the Heavenly Principles' laws and rules. Irminsul can manipulate and actually change memories and incorporate what it needs to, almost like a giant supercomputer with a data failsafe and memory hard drive. It records everything that happens on Teyvat. Teyvat's primary function is to avoid the Honkai and all of these external forces, Descenders, the imaginary and quantum elements, Conria dabbling in technology they were never supposed to, and trying to almost break the laws that make up this world, almost invite the Honkai to potentially happen. Why civilization cannot advance.
The sustainer of heavenly principles. The arrogation of mankind.
Because we know the Honkai targets civilization that is fully advanced. That is why Teyvat is so much more primitive and medieval than the rest of the other games. Why it doesn't even have the name in the title, and why Conria almost doomed Teyvat by accident possibly, dabbling in forbidden knowledge in the abyss.
The arrogation of mankind ends now.
Which could just very well be knowledge of the outside universes and worlds like the Honkai Impact games. Different technologies that they have out there that are way more advanced. And the Abyss just being the Sea of Quanta that you can travel through, gain more crazy knowledge from other worlds and bring it back to Teyvat. A recipe for disaster if you're trying to create this world to adamantly avoid the Honkai at all costs. I mean, we know that Conria got outside help to get so advanced, and it makes sense when you play and look at the other games. There's a vast majority of places they could have gotten that knowledge from. That sets them way ahead of the rest of Teyvat, the other nations. Most individuals within Teyvat probably don't have a effing clue that they're not the only ones in the universe. Then you establish the 7 nations, the Archons, who pretty much represent like almost antiviruses for Irminsul and for Teyvat to function properly, and it gives people something to look up to and worship. But even individuals within Teyvat seem to be self-aware of what's going on, at least a little bit. But if they're actually trying to overthrow the Heavenly Principles, the Fatui Harbingers, are they ultimately dooming Teyvat to damnation of the Honkai? Could it manifest within Teyvat already? Because we know it's more of like a concept. It represents order within the laws of the universe. Could the Heavenly Principles themselves manifested into the Honkai in order to take down Conria? And that really is the consequence of advancing too far, despite every effort to try and avoid that. The Honkai just has to take down civilization that's advanced too far, but it can take the shape of anything: disasters, monsters, disease, or maybe Descenders. It's really hard to say. And who really did establish Teyvat? Was it meant to be its own pocket universe to avoid this fate? The fate that every world and every universe that's within the HoYoverse always seems to find themselves in? Was it a Herrscher from Honkai Impact that created Teyvat? Was it a Genius Society member from Star Rail? We know they can create simulated universes. Or was it an Eon? Or just a literal run-of-the-mill person that figured this out? It could be a wide variety of different options. But without a doubt, besides the developers telling us themselves, these not so missing elements in Genshin all but confirm, with the Descenders, the Outsiders coming in, that these games are very much connected, and that the significance of Teyvat is just that. The fact that it is isolated and found a way to avoid the Honkai for so long. I think that's the exact point of why these games exist at all, and why Teyvat is so important. Again, there's a lot of little details in between that we don't know, like identities of characters and the exact day-to-day reasons, but I think in essence, that's the meat and potatoes of why Teyvat exists at all. And I know with certain leaks of Genshin Impact 2 or a sequel, or how the story continues after we have defeated Celestia, went to all 7 nations, and do what we do, I think the story expands and we actually get to leave outside of Teyvat, or Teyvat expands into the other worlds. I think that's just a fitting way to continue the story once Teyvat actually wraps up with its 7 nations. I do think it's interesting that all 3 of these games and their lore does connect. We just don't know how direct and in what exact particular way it does yet, but I think this does cover the meat and potatoes of what I think is actually going on. You know, someone like Skirk, who is obviously from outside Teyvat, could be a wide variety of different people. She could be an Eon, an Emanator, Hairster as well. Like, there's a wide variety of characters that she could be, but I do think she's from the Sea of Quanta. Seeing as that she does have, like, fins in her design and sea-like Easter eggs, I think that's deliberate. She has black hole energy. Who knows? Maybe she's another emanator of nihility. I'm interested to hear your thoughts in the comments where you see the blanks filling in, and maybe you'd swap some certain things out. But I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And as always, we will see you all in the next one. Later.